Well, recapping one of our top stories, restoring diplomatic relations between the U.S. and Cuba. A delegation will be here in Washington for the dedication of the Cuban embassy, restoring formal ties for the first time in more than 50 years. As the U.S. opens to Cuban exports, renewed ties could mean big things for businesses. And joining me now is David Savona in New Orleans. He is the executive director of Cigar Aficionado magazine. Welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you very much.
Tell us, what does this mean for you personally?
Well, it's exciting times. The news of Cuba and the United States getting closer together, resuming official relations, means busy times for us at Cigar Aficionado. We cover Cuba very closely. I go to Cuba at least once a year, and it's something for a while I thought I might never see. And it's very interesting to see what the future holds in store.
A lot of people know this magazine, Cigar Aficionado. Is this going to help you in business? And tell us what it's going to mean for other businesses, and what gems does Cuba have that the U.S. and other countries around the world are really going to be interested in?
Well, when people think about Cuba, one of the first things they think about, I think, are the cigars. They're so famous for their cigars. And when you think about cigars, you tend to think about Cigar Aficionado. So for us, it does hold a lot of promise. We have been writing about the cigars of Cuba for the entire 23-year history of the magazine. And Cuba makes some of the finest cigars on earth. So the gems of Cuba that Americans have been long denied are the cigars of Cuba. Montecristo No. 2s, Cohiba Esplendidos, Partagas Serie D No. 4s. These are cigars that receive very high ratings in our magazine, and I think the cigar lovers of America, once the embargo is lifted, which is not happening just yet, but it's certainly, we're moving closer in that direction. When the embargo is lifted and the Cuban cigars do come into the U.S. market, I think the demand will be very large for them.
Tell us, you've obviously spent time there as a businessman. We've heard a lot of reports. We've had reports coming in from our correspondent there about what this means for the Cuban people, but what is your take on it?
I'm excited for the Cuban people with these new developments. The people of Cuba are lovely people. I've been going there a number of times. I've been there about a dozen times. And regardless of the issues between the governments of Cuba and the United States that have persisted for more than 50 years, the people of Cuba have always been extremely welcoming to me personally on my visits there. Other Americans that I know that have visited there have always been welcomed with open arms. There's a curiosity the people of Cuba have for the people of the United States. They're proud of their country. They're happy to show it off, and they want to have Americans resume ties with the country so they could embrace the American people as they long have wanted to.
David, what's the buzz there in New Orleans among the Americans at the convention?
Yeah, sure. We're here in New Orleans at the annual IPCPR trade show, which is the gathering of the non-Cuban cigar business. People are showing off their new cigars to retailers who are here to buy them. And Cuba's definitely a buzz. People are talking about it. People are thinking about what the future might hold in store. And I think a lot of people believe, as I do, that when these ties are normalized and Cuban cigars become part of the American cigar market, that it'll mean a new cigar boom. I think there'll be new interest in cigars. People who haven't tried a cigar before will want to try a Cuban cigar. And because the cigars that are made in Nicaragua, Honduras, the Dominican Republic, and other countries are so excellent too, I think it'll be good for the entire cigar industry, not just the Cuban cigar industry, but the cigar industry in general.
Well, David Savona with Cigar Aficionado, we appreciate your time today and your insight. Very interesting.
Thanks very much. It was a pleasure.